Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of the MS Refresh Show. This is episode 7, the week of January 18th, 2021. My name is Matt Wade, coming to you from the U.S. East Coast.
And I'm Sean Bugler, coming from the West Coast of the United States.
That was great. Sean, what's good with you this week? What's new?
Oh, the weather is beautiful. Not to brag, but it's a balmy 68 right now over here in Oakland. How's it over there in upstate New York?
It's literally cold and snowing out right now. Yep.
And things are good. I think I'm settling into 2021 nicely. Good. I do this thing every year, which is I let all of my projects back up until the end of the year, and then I do all of them right before New Year's Day. And then I start 2021 fresh. And by fresh,
awesome.
I mean
like
maintaining the same habits as before, which is accumulating projects.
Right. Yep.
So far, so good, though. I feel.
And I'd say for the last couple of weeks have been interesting for me. You're a tech geek, so I would be surprised if you told me you didn't own any of this. But like the Bitcoin roller coaster has been a lot of fun the last couple of weeks. Do you own
Bitcoin?
I bought some back in like 2016, 17 and just kind of sat on it, put it in a wallet and put it in a safe deposit box and haven't touched it since. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll sell some, a couple weeks ago, and then I'm not going to now. And
are you one of those
kind of
like,
money
you remember your password and all that, right?
Oh yeah. I work in IT, dude. Like, come on.
This episode was brought to you by 1Password.
Seriously.
No, I actually don't own any Bitcoin. I remember reading about it in like 2014 or 2012 or something like that, and thinking this sounds right up my alley, and then doing nothing about it, which is very endemic to who I am as an individual.
I guess you could like call me a hodler or something like that, but it's really more about it's like looking at your 401k and just like set it and forget it. Like, oh, we'll just see what the value is in 3 years or something like that.
Seems to be paying off for you so far.
Yeah, so far, well, I guess we'll see what happens. But it's been a fun ride because I was thinking of pulling the trigger a couple weeks ago, and then we'll just see what happens. And then this week it's like, whoa, okay, well now we're gonna really wait and see what happens. But anyway, so that's been my tech news has been overrun by the leaked M1 MacBook Pros potentially coming out later this year.
I'm so
the Bitcoin
excited!
Roller coaster. So I got to catch up on the Microsoft news this week.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
It is. So I think that's not a bad segue. So let's just bring it right in and we'll just jump right into the news.
This is the news.
On Wednesday, Microsoft announced that access reviews for guests in all Teams and Microsoft 365 groups is now in public preview. Tenants with Azure Active Directory Premium 2 can now enable Azure AD access reviews for your guest users across all Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 groups in your organization. To help with initial adoption, it was also announced that as new teams and groups are created, access reviews will be automatically enabled for those that have guest users in them. Some meaningful updates have arrived for Microsoft's various iPad apps. Microsoft Excel for iPad now supports Split View, nearly 7 months after Word and PowerPoint received similar updates back in May of 2020. Microsoft Word for iPad picked up full trackpad support. And lastly, PowerPoint for iPad is rolling out Presenter Coaching, making it the first installable version of the service to support the feature. Less than a year after announcing support for 100 gigabyte files, Microsoft 365 users will soon be able to upload large file sizes up to 250 gigabytes in OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. There's conflicting reports as to exactly when this feature will release worldwide, but according to Microsoft, it should be no later than Q1 of this year. Weather is coming to the calendar view in Outlook for Android. Hot on the tail of new stream experiences being built into SharePoint, a new SharePoint video web part is on the way, along with new default page templates to encourage more rich use of media across sites. Information is limited right now, but our understanding is that this will be separate from the stream web part and instead focus on videos stored directly within SharePoint. In what can only be described as a win for the entire town in the movie Footloose, Microsoft has announced the release of new admin controls to remove the option for users to search and insert a GIF, or GIF, using the native controls in the ribbon. In a request for comment, the project manager responsible for the change replied, Work is no place for fun. Humbug. Some love for our friends in government. The ability to save Microsoft Teams meeting recordings to OneDrive and SharePoint is finally making its way to GCC High and DoD tenants next month, according to the Microsoft 365 roadmap. And GCC tenants working within Teams will soon be able to follow and even mute conversations as soon as March. Both updates, presuming they arrive on time, mark a relatively promising trend of features released first in the standard commercial tenants making their way to sovereign clouds like GCC and DoD in less than 6 months. Progress. The new Teams usage activity reports for Microsoft 365 admins are gearing up for launch as soon as the end of this month. These new reports show tenant-level aggregate breakdowns and, very interestingly, per-team-level details, aiming to provide more granular snapshots of adoption and usage across an organization. Finally, Microsoft is expanding the reach of Microsoft Search and SharePoint. Hitting targeted release tenants as soon as the end of this month, classic team sites will be updated to support modern Microsoft Search experiences, including a redesign that will move the standard search box to the suite navigation bar in line with modern Microsoft design. Microsoft has emphasized that classic team sites that already have a customized search experience will not be affected by the change, continuing a trend of modernizing legacy classic experiences that were otherwise left in their default configurations.
That was the news.
All right, great. Thanks, John. So what one stood out to you this week?
Oh, without a doubt, Outlook for Android getting weather functionality.
No, but really.
Office iPad apps getting updates. This is, I think, huge. We've talked a lot about kind of the Apple ecosystem and Microsoft's investment in it, and we even made jokes about last week that it's
love us more.
Yeah, it's this most favored nation complex of we seem to be getting features and functionalities well before the Microsoft native experiences. And what I'm seeing here, in particular, PowerPoint getting the presenter coaching in the app, that's not something that's in a desktop experience, period. It's a web-only experience, or it has been up to this point, and its first foray as a native feature is going to be the iPad apps. So it's really interesting, this march towards the web that Microsoft is really kind of just resolutely going towards. And yet they're investing in these app experiences, which is great. I'm not complaining. The iPad is, what's a computer? So I'm really, really excited to see kind of what more comes of that. The other piece I'll throw in here is the Excel for iPad getting split view. For any of us who have done data analysis or data entry for that matter, it is a core piece of functionality to have two spreadsheets next to each other so that you can move stuff from left to right. You can cross-reference things. So that's it to the point that you continue to make about presenter view in the web in PowerPoint. It feels like something that should have been there on day one. And I know that part of that is Apple's fault for not supporting it, but we got here. We've made it. Hooray.
Yeah. I've always said this, if you don't include a spreadsheet at least a couple days a week in your work, day to day, you ain't living your best life. These spreadsheets just make things so much better in so many different ways. And if there's one online class you can take, or a 2-hour-long YouTube video you want to watch that to actually make a difference in your life, it's going to be that and that kind of feature. You're right. Having two next to each other and be able to bounce back and forth, that is a huge, huge win.
I was an Excel trainer in my past life. I actually have
no kidding,
a couple of Excel videos on YouTube that are encroaching, I think, 2 million views cumulative. Yeah, I'll drop them in the show notes. It's gonna make somebody else some money, but I'll drop them in the show notes.
That's super cool, actually. Huh, interesting. Yeah, just having come from the engineering field, all of the data analysis that comes from big picture, finite element analysis or fluid dynamics analysis, that kind of stuff, you just get all this raw data and you dump it into Excel. The reason airplanes fly and the reason submarines are able to, come back up from the bottom of the ocean is because of Microsoft Excel. It's, that's the reason why all this stuff works. And once you get to learn how those kind of apps work, it's whoa, I can really apply this to my day-to-day life in certain ways. And it's amazing.
I'm waiting for Excel to get its
TikTok
TikTok
That's not even getting
moment.
into macros. Yeah, right, exactly. Agreed.
It's coming.
Nice. Right,
Notion
cool.
just had its.
Yeah.
So, Excel's next.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so one for me, I just have to comment on the size of OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams files going from 100 gigabytes to 250 gigabytes. So we waited a very long time to. I know we waited a very long time to go from 15 to 100. Now we're going from 100 to 250 in like a third or a quarter of the time that we waited between the last one. And I know that has more to do with the incremental or the differential sync, the delta sync, as opposed to uploading the file every single time a change is made, which is the issue that they had with the 15 gigabyte files. But at this point, I don't know who needs a 250 gigabyte file for anything. And I worked on, in the AE field, architectural engineering field, for a number of years. Like, we build buildings with 100 gigabyte or less files. Like, even these 3D renderings don't really necessarily need it. Most of the time, I would think. So I'm thinking if you're not working on Hollywood, feature films, there is no reason to complain about space or file size limitation ever again within this ecosystem. So at this point, I never want to hear a complaint from anybody ever again about storage. Ever. Okay.
No, the issue is not going to be storage. The issue is not going to be upload capacity. It's going to be running out of space to actually keep this stuff. Because 4 of these
locally.
Well, yeah,
locally on your device, but your OneDrive is effectively infinite. I mean, like 1 terabyte, but it goes up to 5. But if you ask us nicely, we'll give you as much as you want. Like,
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's just like Google Photos. They wait until you've put everything in there, and then they start pulling it back a little bit.
Out from under you. Yeah, fair. That's a fair comment. All right, what's another one that stood out to you?
I think something that I think is interesting, just kind of from an observer standpoint, is the Microsoft search coming to the classic SharePoint sites. Microsoft has already gone on record in saying that they're not going to retire, per se, the classic experience in SharePoint. They're going to let it continue to be. And the reality, of course, is that there are plenty of organizations that have invested much money into their SharePoint experience. Yeah, way too much. I mean, I was a part of that. I was a consultant in that space. It's wild how much money they poured into that, how much customization.
Don't brand SharePoint, don't customize search.
Oh, but those were just the two most lucrative spaces.
I'm going to piss so many people off by saying that, but
I mean, that was it.
In your best interest.
It's so much better now. I mean, they've imbued so much more design into the SharePoint experience, the modern SharePoint experience. But all that aside, it's interesting to me that they are going back into the classic SharePoint space and implementing the Microsoft search in the sweet bar. Because right now, if you go into a classic SharePoint site, it's still got that dinky little search box in the top right-hand corner that, it works. Now, it is important to note, of course, for anybody who's invested time in customizing their search experience, they're not going to be touching yours. And they probably won't ever. Microsoft just doesn't have any interest in breaking things. But as we've seen with the default theme, as we've seen with page layouts and things to that effect, if you haven't customized it, Microsoft is slowly but surely going to be updating and modernizing and taking away some of those things. So it's interesting to keep an eye on.
Definitely. Nope, I agree with that. That's a good plan. Do you see a lot of usage of the classic sites in your organization?
When I took over 3 years ago, coming up on 3 years ago, 3 days from now, the very first thing I did was implement a plan to retire our classic experiences across the board. And I was lucky that our usage was, at the time, very small. So I was able to kind of go scorched earth on it. But we did, prior to our recent tenant-to-tenant migration, have a fair few classic experiences that just pervaded. We've got one from a good friend of mine who works in the organization, who's our longest tenured employee. He's older than the agency is, from a tenure perspective, which is great. I mean, he's the institutional knowledge that man has. But he, from just a familiarity standpoint, still has a classic site that we brought over in the migration. What about you? You're stepping into the admin role. Classic experiences in SharePoint?
Yeah, there are some. Pretty much. I'm trying to think why. I don't actually know why they are. Because
for those of you at home, that's the question you should be asking every single time you see a classic experience in SharePoint.
Because they would have been created in the time frame of when modern existed, and I don't really understand why they were classic. But I also would allow for the fact that the people using it just didn't know the difference and just didn't know any better, which that's that's excusable, of course. And they were just responding to a pandemic basically, and we got to get onto a cloud. So yeah, I'm not sure why, but that's on my task this year is clean those up, modernize them, move them, do whatever we got to do. But moving forward, we're really building out, so everything will be modern. So yeah.
What about you? What else has caught your attention?
So me, for the last notable one for me, we didn't even have in the news because we've covered it before, but I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware that the public preview for PowerPoint presenter view in Microsoft Teams meetings. So if you go forward and you go to share and then you choose a PowerPoint file as opposed to sharing your screen or an app, now includes presenter view, and that'll be available to those of you who have signed up for public preview. I actually don't even know how to sign up for that, so you'll have to do a little Googling or Binging to figure out how to get that.
If we find something, we'll drop it in the show notes.
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be some resource out there on how to do that. But I have seen it, and it looks really, really slick. And actually, be on the lookout. I'm hopeful this week or next week I'll have a video out on how to use it. It's really cool because it actually solves the problem of how can two people or multiple people present on a slideshow without having to do next slide, please, because, it's 2021. We shouldn't have to be doing that. And this actually solves that problem, which is pretty slick. And it works also whether you're using the desktop app or if you're using the web browser. So at least if the person sharing starts in the desktop app and somebody else in the web browser that's on the call wants to take over, they can. And they won't see the presenter view, but they can still control moving forward in the slide. So now you have the ability to do that, which I don't believe was something that was available before. So that's pretty slick. I know a lot of people are waiting for that. I actually think Microsoft doesn't realize how popular this feature is or what the response is going to be. I think they're out there like, woohoo, look at us with all our Teams updates. And it's like, general like Teams, like actual Teams stuff. And it's like, but we're all just sitting out here waiting for that basic presenter view thing in PowerPoint. And I think there's going to be a really good positive response to that from what I've seen. So.
Well, that's going to be good. I'm looking forward to that as well. I know that's something that, as a government agency, we've got a board of commissioners and they do presentations all the time. And there's definitely some admin whose whole job is just being there to receive that. Next slide, please. No, can you go back one? Next slide, please.
It just makes me cringe. It really does. Ugh. So that should be a thing of the past. So that's good. All right, cool. So I think that covers our banter for the week, and it brings us to our community content for this week. Upcoming events for the rest of up until at least March we have. Basically, it's the same list as last week, except we have one addition. On January 29th, the Power of the Cloud Power User Virtual Conference is an SPS event, so basically like a SharePoint Saturday, M365 Saturday style event. You'll find the link in the list of events that are coming up, so you can just go to the link at the bottom or in the description to the video. And just a quick reminder, Microsoft Ignite, March 2nd, coming up. So once the opening to sign up for that is available, I haven't seen it. Have you, Sean?
No, I haven't. I've seen people posting pictures from Ignite, I guess, a year and a half ago. But no, I haven't seen anything about signups just yet. But if we do find something, we'll drop it in the show notes for sure.
Yep, definitely. All right. And then community member of the week. I want to give a shout out to somebody who is just a really good friend of mine after the last few years. Her name is Stacy Deer-Stroll. So she owns a company called Focal Point Solutions out of Cincinnati. She's also one of the leads of the M365 Friday Cincinnati event and probably the user group there as well. She's really well known for her SharePoint information architecture, best practices kind of thing. Just really, really good at building information resources in SharePoint and using those tools to the best that you can. Her sessions are always really, really good. And I've interacted with her now probably a dozen times at different events. She's just so much fun person outside of the event. She really is. She's so nice.
Not fair.
It really is. It
makes you want to hate her how nice she is, but you can't because of how nice
she is. Exactly. And she tells all these great anecdotes in her sessions and all that, she's super, approachable and fun and nice. But a lot of people put on a persona when they present and then they kind of close up and we're all just IT people. We just kind of close up in our cocoon afterwards and don't touch me, don't talk to me. I'm going to go over here now. And she's not like that at all. She's fantastic. So if you've never met her or never interacted with her online, by all means follow her. She is fantastic. And at the point where, we're back in person at events, you absolutely want to go to her sessions. And even for digital events, definitely pop into hers as well because they're just super, super good. But yeah, shout out to Stacy. We've shared a lot of fun stories, events, and just experiences together, and I always have a good time. I'm glad that this is somebody you've interacted with too, and can.
I feel like she's at every event
awesome.
I go to. Back when I used to travel. Back when we all used to travel.
Yeah. Yeah. She loves her dogs. I believe they're named after two characters in Game of Thrones. I'm trying to remember now. Oh, one of them is Khaleesi. Definitely, one of them is Khaleesi. I can't remember what the other one is now. But anyway, shout out to you, Stacey. Love you. I've had a lot of fun with you, and I can't wait to see you again in the future. So, all right. Well, that's all I've got. I will say like and subscribe, as always, is much appreciated. If you have any comments on what we talked about this week, by all means, leave those below, as we like to say in the description every week. No, not that way. This way. Sean, what do we say in the description each week?
Smashing like that subscribe button?
No. Let's fight.
Let's fight.
We haven't fought with anybody. Yeah.
Nobody wants to pick fights. Our audience is too amiable. You guys are too likable.
Agreed.
We have to start
saying things that are. Yeah, we have to start saying more controversial things, I think.
I have
something
a whole
like
list.
Yeah, that's true. We're doing this over Zoom right now. This is the first time we've done this over Zoom. So that right there for me, that was fight worthy, but whatever.
At least it's not taking up 4 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, that's fair point. All right, so I think that'll bring us to a close. Sean, thank you again for chatting with me this week. I look forward to seeing you next week, and everybody watching. Keep at it, and we'll see you next week for more news from the Microsoft 365 front.
Stay safe, everybody. Hey, do you have any good banks?
Banks? As in like money places?
Money places? Yeah, my bank is shutting down.
Oh, you have Simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You nerds and your
hey, they pioneered
trust
a
your money
whole
with.
bunch of shit. There was
check
photo deposits before anybody was doing them.